The screech of tires, the sickening crunch of metal. Time didn't just slow down, it shattered into a million pieces, each fragment reflecting a different angle of my own death. I was 17 and I was watching myself die on a quiet suburban street in Massachusetts. The amazing thing about dying? You don't feel the impact. One moment I was cycling home from school, my earbuds playing worship music, a habit I'd kept even after losing my faith, and the next, I was floating above my own broken body. My red bike lay twisted beneath me, its wheels still spinning uselessly in the autumn breeze. Golden leaves danced around the scene, oblivious to the tragedy they were decorating. Someone called 911, a woman's voice cut through the gathering crowd. I wanted to tell her it was okay, that I didn't feel any pain, but my words had no sound. Below, my body lay motionless, blood seeping through my favorite Celtics hoodie, the last birthday gift Mom gave me before cancer took her. I watched as neighbors rushed from their homes, faces twisted with horror. Mrs. Martinez from next door was performing CPR, her hands steady despite her tears. She used to babysit Sarah, my little sister with Down syndrome. Sarah. Oh God, Sarah. Who would take care of her now? Dad was barely holding it together as it was. Then I saw him, the driver, stumbling out of his car, his face ashen. Something about him seemed familiar, like a nightmare I couldn't quite remember. As he approached my body, I noticed his hands shaking, eyes wild with guilt and recognition. That's when the world began to shift. The golden autumn afternoon darkened, colors bleeding away like watercolors in the rain. A force I couldn't see started pulling me upward, away from my body, away from everything I knew. But this wasn't the peaceful light people talked about in near-death experiences. This was different. This was wrong. Our Father, who art in heaven, Mrs. Martinez's prayer floated up to me, a lifeline in the growing darkness. But even as I reached for those familiar words, the void opened beneath me, and I began to fall into a realm where shadows danced and whispers echoed with the weight of eternity. I was 17, and this was just the beginning of my dance with death, a dance that would reveal secrets about my mother's sacrifice, test my lost faith, and force me to choose between heavenly peace and earthly love. But I didn't know any of that yet. All I knew was that the darkness was waiting, and it knew my name. If this glimpse into my death touched your soul, join our spiritual journey, subscribe to witness the profound truth that forever changed my life. I never imagined I'd be the kind of person who'd question God's existence. Growing up as Pastor James Thompson's son in our tight-knit community of Springfield, Massachusetts, faith was as natural as breathing. Our family was the picture of Christian devotion, Dad leading Sunday services, Mom running the youth ministry, and me, Lucas Thompson, helping with the choir while dreaming of becoming a worship leader myself. That was before the cancer took Mom. Before I watched faith fail to save her, despite thousands of prayers and endless nights of begging God for a miracle. She was gone within 6 months of the diagnosis, leaving behind a hollow space that echoes with unanswered prayers and broken promises. But the real test of faith wasn't losing Mom, it was watching what happened afterward. Dad, once the pillar of spiritual strength in our community, began delivering sermons that felt more like questions than answers. His powerful voice, which used to fill the church with unwavering conviction, now trembled with doubt. The congregation noticed, of course. Attendance dropped, whispers spread, and the warmth that once filled our church grew cold. Then there was Sarah, my 12-year-old sister with Down syndrome. Mom had been her primary caregiver, understanding Sarah's needs in a way that seemed almost miraculous. After Mom died, Sarah would sit by the window every afternoon waiting for her to come home. "Mommy's with Jesus," we'd tell her, but how do you explain permanent loss to a child who sees the world through eyes of pure love? I stepped up as best I could, learning Sarah's routines, memorizing her medications, and trying to fill the gap Mom left behind. But at 17, juggling high school, Sarah's care, and watching Dad's slow descent into depression was like trying to hold water in cupped hands. No matter how hard I tried, something always slipped through. The breaking point came during last year's Christmas service. Dad stood at the pulpit, staring at his congregation, and instead of delivering the planned sermon about hope and joy, he asked one devastating question: how do we praise a God who lets children lose their mothers? The silence that followed was deafening. Half the congregation left that day and they didn't come back. Now our lives revolve around a delicate balance of unspoken grief. Dad goes through the motions of leading a dwindling congregation while drowning in antidepressants. Sarah spends her days at a special needs program where the teachers give me concerned looks when I pick her up instead of a parent. And me? I've become an expert at wearing masks, the dutiful son at church, the responsible brother at home, the normal teenager at school. But underneath it all, there's a rage building. A fury at a God who would take a mother from her disabled child, who would let a man of faith drown in doubt, who would force a 17-year-old to grow up overnight. The worship songs I once loved now taste like ash in my mouth. The Bible verses I memorized as a child mock me with their promises of peace and protection. The only thing keeping me going is Sarah. Her pure love, untainted by theology or doubt, reminds me of what Mom used to say: faith isn't about understanding God's plan, it's about trusting His heart. But lately I'm not sure I trust either. Little did I know that God wasn't finished with our story. That my bike ride home on that autumn afternoon would set in motion events that would challenge everything I believed about faith, sacrifice, and the true meaning of miracles. But to understand what happened next, you need to know one more thing, something I discovered only after my dance with death. Mom's cancer wasn't what really killed her. The truth was far more devastating, and it had everything to do with the man who ran me off the road. The official story was that Mom died from an aggressive form of leukemia. That's what the death certificate said, what the doctors told us, what Dad announced to the congregation between choked sobs. But there were things that never added up, whispered conversations I wasn't meant to hear, medical bills that disappeared too quickly, and a mysterious letter Mom left that Dad keeps locked in his study drawer. I remember the night before she died with perfect clarity. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors and Sarah's soft humming as she colored in her book. Mom asked everyone to leave except me. Her face, hollow from months of treatment, somehow glowed with an inner light I'd never seen before. "Lucas," she said, taking my hand with surprising strength, "promise me you'll watch over Sarah. And forgive your father, there are burdens he carries that you don't understand yet." Before I could ask what she meant, she pressed her silver cross necklace into my palm. "When the time comes, you'll know what to do with this." Those were her last coherent words to me. That night, something strange happened. I woke to the sound of voices in the hospital corridor, Dad, and a man I didn't recognize, their shadows sharp against the frosted glass. "The agreement stands," the stranger said. "A life for a life." She made her choice. Dad's response was lost in a sob. When I opened the door, they were gone, and Mom's monitors were flat-lining. In the chaos that followed, I almost convinced myself I'd dreamed it. Almost. But then things started happening that I couldn't explain. Sarah's mysterious genetic condition, which doctors had said would gradually worsen, suddenly stabilized. The mounting medical bills vanished overnight, and Dad, he stopped praying entirely. The changes in our family were subtle but profound. Dad threw himself into work, leading extra services, counseling sessions, anything to keep busy. But his sermons changed, focusing increasingly on themes of sacrifice, divine contracts, and the Book of Job. He kept Mom's study exactly as she left it, locked, with strict instructions never to enter. I started noticing other oddities too. Every year on the anniversary of Mom's death, a black car parks outside our church. Its driver never gets out, but Dad spends hours staring at it through his office window, clutching Mom's letter with trembling hands. When I asked about it once, he aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Sarah was the only one who seemed to know something the rest of us didn't. Sometimes she'd look at Mom's photo and say, "Mommy made the angels promise." When we'd ask what promise, she'd just smile, that pure, knowing smile of hers. The same smile Mom had in her final moments. I tried to investigate, but every lead hit a wall. Hospital records showed gaps in Mom's treatment timeline. The doctor who signed her death certificate no longer worked there, and nobody seemed to know where he went. Even Mom's old friends from church would change the subject when I asked about her final days. The only concrete clue I had was her cross necklace, which I wore hidden under my shirts. Sometimes late at night it would feel warm against my skin, pulsing like a heartbeat. Those nights I'd dream of Mom standing in a bright doorway trying to tell me something I couldn't quite hear. All these mysteries might have remained buried if not for the accident, because the man who hit me with his car, the one whose face seemed so familiar, was the same man I'd seen talking to Dad that night at the hospital. And as I hovered between life and death, watching him stare at my broken body with recognition in his eyes, I realized Mom's death wasn't the tragedy I thought it was. It was just the beginning of a much bigger story. A story about sacrifices and sacred contracts, about a mother's love that defied death itself, and about a choice that would force me to question everything I thought I knew about faith, life, and what happens when we die. The day I died or almost died started like any other Tuesday. Sarah had been struggling with her morning routine, refusing to take her medications until I sang Mom's special song. Dad locked himself in his study for sermon preparation, though I could smell the whiskey through the door. I was running late for school again. As I pedaled down familiar streets, Mom's cross felt unusually warm against my chest. The autumn wind carried the scent of wood smoke and dying leaves, and something that made the hair on my neck stand up. Looking back, I should have recognized these as warnings, but I was too busy worrying about my calculus test and Sarah's upcoming doctor's appointment. The black car appeared at the corner of Maple and Church Street. The same car that haunted our church on death anniversaries, the same sleek machine that carried secrets about Mom's passing. My heart stuttered when I recognized the driver through the windshield, a face that had haunted my dreams for 3 years, lined with age but unmistakable. He saw me too. His eyes widened with recognition, then narrowed with something that looked like purpose. The car engine roared to life. Time seemed to slow as he accelerated toward me, his face a mask of grim determination. This wasn't an accident, he was aiming for me. I swerved hard, my bike skidding on wet leaves. The world tilted sideways as I lost control, memories flashing through my mind: Sarah's morning smile, Dad's empty prayers, Mom's final words. The impact when it came wasn't what I expected. Instead of crushing metal and breaking bones, I felt a sudden lightness, as if gravity had forgotten its job. My body lay broken on the pavement, but I was floating above it all, watching the scene unfold like a movie. Mrs. Martinez ran out of her house screaming prayers in Spanish. Mr. Johnson from the hardware store called 911 with shaking hands. And the driver, he stood over my body with an expression I couldn't quite read. Was it regret? Relief? Recognition? It had to be done, he whispered, though no one else seemed to hear. The contract must be honored. He touched Mom's cross, still hanging around my lifeless body's neck, and it flared with a light only I could see. That's when the pulling started. Not up toward a heavenly light, but down into something darker, more ancient. The world began to fade, colors bleeding away like watercolors in rain. I fought against it, trying to stay near my body, near the world I knew. But the force was relentless, drawing me deeper into a realm I never knew existed. The last thing I saw before the darkness took me was Sarah, somehow there at the accident scene, her small hand reaching toward my floating form. Her eyes met mine, really met mine, though that should have been impossible, and she spoke words that shook my soul. Mommy said you'd understand now. Then everything went black. Not the black of closed eyes or night skies, but a darkness that breathed and moved and wanted. I fell through layers of shadow, each one colder than the last, until even my thoughts began to freeze. The cross around my neck burned like a star, the only warmth in this void. Voices whispered from the darkness, some familiar, others terrifyingly strange. They spoke of contracts and sacrifices, of choices and consequences. One voice rose above the others, achingly familiar, Mom's voice, singing her special song for Sarah. But the melody was wrong, twisted into something that made my soul ache. Welcome, Lucas Thompson, the darkness seemed to say, though not in words I could hear with ears. We've been expecting you. Your mother made quite the deal for your sister's life. Now it's your turn to choose. The darkness wasn't empty. As my eyes adjusted, I began to see shapes moving through the void, shadows of people caught in endless loops of motion. A businessman checking his watch for eternity. A woman reaching for something she'd never grasped. A child running in circles that went nowhere. Each figure radiated regret, so intense it made my chest ache. Then I saw her. Not Mom, but a little girl who looked exactly like Sarah. Down to the gentle slope of her eyes and the way she held her hands. She sat in an endless loop of waiting, watching a door that never opened. My heart clenched. This was Sarah's fate. What would have happened if Mom hadn't made her mysterious sacrifice? Your mother's choice was clear, a voice whispered from the shadows. The man from the car materialized beside me, but different now, older, ancient even, his eyes holding centuries of similar deals. A mother's life for her daughter's future. A fair trade as these things go. But now the balance must be maintained. I tried to back away, but in this place distance seemed meaningless. What are you talking about? What balance? My voice echoed strangely as if speaking through water. The cross at my neck pulsed with warmth, a rhythm like a heartbeat. Every miracle has a price, Lucas Thompson. Your sister lives free from the fate that awaited her because your mother chose to take her place in another way. But such transactions create ripples. He gestured at the shadows around us. Someone must maintain the equilibrium. The shadows began to move differently now, their endless loops synchronizing into a dance that made my head spin. I saw flashes of Mom in her hospital bed, but from a new angle, watching her sign something in golden light, tears streaming down her face as she looked at a vision of Sarah's future. She didn't die of cancer, I whispered, the truth finally clicking into place. She traded her life for Sarah's healing. The man, if that's what he was, nodded slowly. A willing sacrifice freely given. But the contract wasn't finished. It required a witness, a keeper of the balance. That should have been your father, but his faith wavered. And now here you are at the crossroads, just as was foreseen. Anger flared in my chest, hot and bright against the surrounding cold. You murdered me to bring me here, to force me into some kind of cosmic contract. His laugh was like breaking glass. Murder you? No, Lucas. I merely opened the door. You're not dead, not yet. That choice, like your mother's, must be yours to make freely. But choose quickly. Your sister's fate still hangs in the balance, and your father. He waved his hand, and I saw Dad in his study, a bottle of pills in one hand, Mom's letter in the other. You see, contracts like these require constant tending. Your mother's sacrifice bought Sarah time, but without a guardian to maintain the balance, everything she died for will unravel. Look. The shadows parted to show me Sarah in her bedroom, clutching her chest, her face turning blue as she struggled to breathe. The stability Mom had bought with her life was failing. The genetic time bomb in Sarah's cells was counting down again. The choice is yours, the man said, his form beginning to fade. Stay here, learn the truth about your mother's sacrifice, understand the deeper mechanics of faith and miracles, or return to your broken body, blind to the greater mysteries, and watch everything your mother died for crumble to dust. He disappeared, leaving me alone with the dancing shadows and the weight of an impossible choice. Mom's cross burned against my skin, and somewhere in the darkness I could hear Sarah's voice calling my name. Just when the darkness seemed unbearable, everything changed. The shadows parted like a curtain, and light, pure, blinding light poured through. Not the harsh fluorescent glare of hospital rooms or the cold gleam of car headlights, but something warm and alive. It felt like Mom's hugs used to feel, like Sarah's laughter on good days. Lucas Thompson, a voice called, and this time it wasn't the shadowy man's cryptic whispers. This voice rang with authority and compassion in equal measure. Come forward, child. The light coalesced into three figures, towering and radiant. They weren't exactly angels as I'd imagined them from Sunday school lessons, no wings or halos. Instead, they seemed to be made of living light, their forms shifting and flowing like sunlight on water. You stand at a crossroads, the central figure spoke, its voice resonating in my very soul. But before you choose, you must understand. Watch. The light around us transformed into scenes from my life, but from angles I'd never seen before. I saw Mom in her hospital room, but this time I could see what my human eyes had missed, a soft golden glow surrounding her as she made her choice. The shadows that had threatened Sarah's future were visible now, dark tendrils of genetic destiny that Mom's sacrifice had burned away. Your mother's sacrifice was more than a simple exchange, the being explained. It was an act of pure love, the kind that echoes through eternity. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends, John 15:13. The scene shifted to Dad in his study, and my heart broke anew. The darkness around him wasn't just grief, it was literal shadows, similar to those I'd seen in the void, feeding on his doubt and pain. They whispered lies into his ears that Mom's death was meaningless, that God had abandoned them, that Sarah would be better off without him. Your father's struggle is not with faith, but with forgiveness, another radiant being spoke. He blames himself for letting your mother make the sacrifice, for not being strong enough to take her place. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak, Matthew 26:41. Then I saw Sarah, really saw her, as she appeared in the spiritual realm. She glowed with an inner light almost as bright as the beings before me. Around her neck was a delicate chain of golden light connected to the cross I wore. He connected to Mom's sacrifice. Your sister sees what others cannot, the third being said. In her innocence she understands truths that learned scholars miss. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, Matthew 5:8. The revelations hit me like waves. Mom's sacrifice wasn't just about saving Sarah's life, it was about preserving her special connection to the divine. Sarah wasn't disabled, she was gifted with a spiritual sight that most of us had lost. And Dad wasn't losing his faith, he was being attacked by the same forces that had tried to claim Sarah. But why show me all this, I asked, my voice trembling. Why not let me believe it was just cancer, just genetics, just bad luck? The central figure reached out, and suddenly I was enveloped in light so pure it brought tears to my eyes. Because you, Lucas Thompson, have a choice to make. Not just about life or death, but about faith and purpose. Your mother's sacrifice bought time, but time alone is not enough. Sarah needs a guardian, someone to maintain the balance between light and shadow. Your father was meant to take this role, but his guilt made him vulnerable. You want me to be Sarah's guardian, I whispered, the weight of the responsibility settling over me. We want you to choose, they corrected, freely as your mother did. But understand this choice comes with consequences. To be a guardian is to walk between worlds, to see both the light and the shadow. It is to carry a burden few can bear. The light shifted again, showing me two possible futures. In one, I saw myself waking up in the hospital, returning to a normal life, watching helplessly as Sarah's condition deteriorated and Dad's depression deepened. In the other, I saw myself standing at Sarah's bedside, the cross around my neck glowing as I fought off invisible shadows, Dad slowly healing as I helped him understand the truth about Mom's choice. The time has come, the being said in unison. Will you accept your mother's mantle? Will you become the guardian your sister needs? The cross at my neck grew warm, pulsing with Mom's love, Sarah's innocence, and something else, something that felt like destiny. Before I could answer, another figure emerged from the light. Mom. Not the frail, cancer-ravaged version that haunted my memories, but Mom as she'd been before, vibrant, loving, her smile bright enough to chase away any shadow. She stood before me in a dress of pure white, her eyes filled with tears of joy. My brave boy, she said, opening her arms. I fell into them without hesitation, and though this was some spiritual realm between life and death, her embrace felt real, solid. Like coming home after being lost for years. I'm so sorry, she whispered into my hair. I never wanted you to carry this burden so young. But you need to know the whole truth, she pulled back, holding me at arm's length. The man in the black car, Michael Reeves, he's not what you think. He's a guardian too, tasked with maintaining the balance between light and shadow. He was testing you, preparing you. Testing me, my voice cracked. By trying to kill me. Mom shook her head, her eyes sad, by showing you what's really at stake. Lucas, when I made my sacrifice for Sarah, I knew it would change everything. But I couldn't bear to see her future, the suffering, the darkness that awaited her. The genetic condition affecting her body was just a symptom of a deeper spiritual battle. She took my hands in hers, and suddenly I could see what she was describing. Sarah's soul, pure and bright, was a beacon in the spiritual realm. But that light attracted shadows, dark forces that would have consumed her if Mom hadn't intervened. Every light needs a guardian, Mom explained. I became Sarah's guardian by giving my life, but that protection won't last forever. She needs someone to stand watch, to fight the shadows that would dim her light. Your father. She paused, pain crossing her face. He tries, but his guilt makes him vulnerable. The shadows feed on guilt, on doubt, on fear. Is that why he can't move on? Why he's drowning himself in alcohol and work? Mom nodded. The shadows whisper to him, twist his memories of me, make him question everything he once believed. But you, Lucas, you have a strength he doesn't. You have my cross, my love, and most importantly, you have a choice. She touched the cross at my neck, and it blazed with golden light. Images flooded my mind, Sarah laughing as she sang hymns in church, her face glowing with an inner light that others couldn't see. Dad in his study, surrounded by creeping shadows that fled when I entered the room wearing Mom's cross. The mysterious Michael Reeves standing guard outside our church, fighting battles invisible to human eyes. If I become Sarah's guardian, I said slowly, what happens to my life, my future? You'll live, but you'll see the world differently. You'll walk between light and shadow, fighting battles most people don't know exist. It's not an easy path, but it's a worthy one. Mom's eyes filled with tears again. But you must choose freely, Lucas. Love given under compulsion isn't love at all. I looked at the radiant beings, still waiting patiently, then back at Mom. And if I say no, then you'll wake up in the hospital. You'll live a normal life, free from this burden. But Sarah, Mom's voice broke. The shadows will return for her, and this time there will be no one to stand in their way. As if to emphasize her point, the light around us dimmed. In the distance, I could hear Sarah crying out my name, could feel her fear and confusion as the shadows pressed in around her. Dad's voice joined hers, slurred with alcohol and heavy with despair. Mom squeezed my hands one last time. Whatever you choose, know that I love you, that I'm proud of you, and that sometimes the heaviest burdens bring the greatest blessings. She stepped back, fading into the light with the radiant beings, leaving me alone with the biggest decision of my life or death. The cross pulsed against my chest, warm with Mom's love and heavy with responsibility. I choose to be her guardian, I declared, my voice echoing through the spiritual realm. For Sarah, for Dad, for Mom, I choose this. The moment the words left my lips, everything changed. The cross at my neck blazed with blinding light, and knowledge poured into my mind like a river breaking through a dam. I saw the world as it truly was, a battlefield between light and shadow, where every soul gave off its own unique glow and dark forces sought to dim that light. But more than that, I understood Mom's sacrifice in its entirety. Through the cross, I experienced her final moments not in the hospital bed where her body lay, but in this very realm where she faced the same choice I did now. I felt her fierce love for Sarah, her faith in me, her heartache at leaving us, and her absolute certainty that she was making the right choice. Your training begins now. Michael Reeves materialized beside me, no longer the ominous figure in the black car, but a fellow warrior in this invisible war. The shadows are already gathering. They sense the shift in power, the continuation of your mother's legacy. He was right. Around us, the darkness writhed and twisted, taking forms that would have terrified me just hours ago, serpentine shapes with too many eyes, voices that whispered promises and threats in languages that shouldn't exist. But with my new sight, I could see them for what they really were: emptiness trying to fill itself with stolen light. The first rule, Michael said, drawing a sword made of pure light, is that this battle is fought not with physical weapons, but with faith, love, and truth. Your mother's cross is both your shield and your sword. Learn to use it well. He taught me how to channel the light within me through the cross, how to create barriers against the darkness, how to see the true nature of people's struggles. Every addiction, every doubt, every moment of despair had its roots in shadow work. But every act of kindness, every moment of true faith, every genuine smile created ripples of light that pushed back the darkness. Your sister, Michael explained as we walked through what seemed like a gallery of memories, is special. Her extra chromosome, what doctors call Down syndrome, gives her a natural ability to see and interact with the light. That's why the shadows want her so badly. Her joy, her pure love, it's like poison to them. I saw Sarah as she truly was, a beacon of pure, uncomplicated faith that lit up the spiritual realm like a miniature sun. But I also saw the shadows that constantly tried to dim her light, using everything from health issues to others' prejudice as weapons. Mom's sacrifice created a protective barrier around Sarah, Michael continued. But it's fading. Without a guardian, the shadows will return in force. They'll use your father's guilt, your own doubts, even the well-meaning pity of others to get to her. The truth hit me hard every time someone treated Sarah as less than. Every pitying look, every whispered poor thing fed the shadows around her. But every time someone saw her true worth, recognized her gifts, or shared in her joy, the light grew stronger. Michael led me to the edge of the spiritual realm, where I could see my body being loaded into an ambulance. Dad had arrived, his face ashen, holding Sarah, who was crying but also glowing. Even in her distress, her light pushed back the shadows that swirled around our father. "You'll wake soon," Michael said. "The physical healing will take time, but your spiritual eyes will remain open. You'll see things others can't, know things they don't understand. It won't be easy." "Will I be alone?" I asked, watching the paramedics work on my body. Michael smiled for the first time. "You were never alone, Lucas. There are more guardians than you know, fighting battles in plain sight. That homeless man who always sits outside your church? Guardian. The librarian who gives Sarah extra attention? Guardian. We're a hidden army, protecting the light wherever we find it." But before I could return, Michael revealed the second plot twist that shook my understanding of everything. "There's something else you need to know about Sarah's condition and your mother's sacrifice," he said, his face grave. "The man who created the contract, the one who originally offered your mother the choice, he's your father's twin brother, James." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Uncle James, the mysterious black sheep of the family who disappeared years before I was born. Dad never spoke about him, and all photos of him had been removed from our family albums. "Your uncle was the first guardian in your family line," Michael explained. "But he became obsessed with the power, tried to control both light and shadow. He's the one who engineered Sarah's genetic condition, hoping to create a perfect vessel of spiritual energy. Your mother discovered his plan and made her sacrifice to protect Sarah, not just from natural shadows, but from her own uncle's ambitions." As if summoned by his name, a new figure emerged from the darkness, a man who looked eerily like my father, but with eyes that burned with an unnatural fire. "So Uncle James said," his voice like ice cracking, "my nephew finally joins the family business." Michael stepped between us, his light sword raised. "He's not ready for this confrontation, James. The boy just learned the truth. The boy needs to understand what he's really chosen," Uncle James countered, circling us like a predator. "Did they tell you the whole truth, Lucas? About how being a guardian slowly consumes you? About how each battle with the shadows leaves a permanent mark on your soul? Ask Michael here. Show him your true form, old friend." Michael's appearance flickered, and for a moment I saw beneath his human disguise his spiritual form was scarred with countless dark marks, testament to years of fighting the shadows. Yet through those scars, his light shone even brighter. "Every scar is a choice I'd make again," Michael said firmly. "Every battle was worth fighting." Uncle James laughed, but there was no humor in it, noble as ever. "But tell him about Sarah's future. Tell him what happens when a light burns too bright in this dark world." "That's enough," Michael's voice cracked like thunder. But Uncle James pressed on, his words burning into my mind. "Your sister's light is different, Lucas, special. What your mother did, what you're choosing to do, it's just delaying the inevitable. Sarah's power will grow until it attracts every shadow in existence. And then," he smiled, and it was terrible to behold. "You're wrong," I said, finding my voice at last. Mom's cross blazed at my throat, responding to my anger. "Sarah's light isn't a weapon or a tool. It's a gift. And I won't let you corrupt it." Brave words, Uncle James mocked. "But you're not the only one with family artifacts." He pulled out a black cross, an inverted version of mine, emanating darkness instead of light. "Your mother wasn't the first Thompson to make a sacrifice for power." Before either Michael or I could react, Uncle James vanished, his last words echoing in the void. "Welcome to the war, nephew. Let's see if you can protect Sarah better than your mother did." Michael turned to me, his expression urgent. "You need to go back now, Lucas. Your body is stabilizing, but there's not much time. Remember what you've learned. Trust the light within you. And most importantly, keep Sarah away from your uncle. He'll try to use your father's guilt to get close to her." The world began to fade around me, the spiritual realm dissolving into hospital fluorescence. The last thing I heard was Michael's warning: the hardest battles aren't fought with light or shadow, but with truth against lies. Your uncle will try to make you doubt everything. Don't let him. "Lucas, can you hear me?" Sarah's voice pulled me back to consciousness. I opened my eyes in the hospital room, but everything looked different now. My new spiritual sight overlaid reality like a double exposure. I could see both the physical world and the spiritual realm simultaneously. Sarah sat beside my bed, her natural light creating a protective bubble that pushed back the hospital shadows. Dad slumped in a corner chair, dark tendrils of guilt and despair writhing around him like hungry snakes. But most alarmingly, I saw Uncle James standing in the doorway, invisible to everyone else, his inverted cross pulsing with dark energy. "Look who's finally awake," Uncle James said, his voice audible only to me. "Time for your first real test as a guardian, nephew." He raised his black cross, and suddenly the shadows around Dad intensified, whispering louder, darker thoughts into his mind. Dad jerked awake, his eyes wild. "I can't do this anymore," he mumbled, pulling out Mom's letter and a bottle of pills. "I failed them all. Catherine, forgive me." "Dad, no." I tried to sit up, but my broken body screamed in protest. The heart monitors went crazy as I struggled against the pain. Sarah, sensing something was wrong, grabbed Dad's hand. "Daddy, look," she pointed at the air above my bed, where my spiritual sight showed me Mom's presence, a faint outline of golden light. "Mommy's here. She's helping Lucas fight the bad shadows." Uncle James snarled, his form flickering with rage. "Impossible. She shouldn't be able to see." He thrust his black cross towards Sarah, sending a wave of darkness her way. Mom's cross burned against my chest, and without thinking, I channeled its light through my pain, creating a shield around Sarah. The effort sent daggers of agony through my broken body, but I wouldn't stop. This was what being a guardian meant. "You have no idea what you're interfering with," Uncle James spat. "Sarah's power could revolutionize everything. With her ability to see both realms, she could help us control the shadows, use them instead of just fighting them endless. She's not your experiment I managed through gritted teeth. She's my sister." The room became a battlefield. Uncle James launched shadow after shadow at Sarah, each one more vicious than the last. I blocked them all, drawing on Mom's love, Sarah's innocent faith, and my own newfound purpose. The physical pain was excruciating, but letting those shadows touch Sarah would be infinitely worse. Dad watched in confused horror as medical equipment went haywire around us. But Sarah saw everything. She stood up, her small hand finding mine, her pure light joining with Mom's cross. "The bad man looks like Daddy," she said simply, "but he doesn't have love in his heart like Daddy does." Her words hit Uncle James like a physical blow. He staggered back, his darkness wavering. "Love is weakness. Look what love got your mother dead before her time." "No," I said, strength flowing into me through Sarah's touch. "Love is what gave Mom the power to stop you. Love is what keeps Sarah shining despite everything you've done. Love is what will end this right now." I raised Mom's cross, now blazing with the combined light of 3 generations of faith. Mom sacrificed Sarah's innocence and my choice to protect them both. The light exploded outward, not just pushing back the shadows but transforming them. As the light from Mom's cross filled the room, something unexpected happened. Instead of destroying Uncle James, it revealed his truth. Through my guardian sight, I saw his past unfold like pages of a burning book. I saw 2 young boys, Dad and Uncle James, growing up in a house full of shadows. Their father, my grandfather, had been a failed guardian who turned to darkness, abusing his powers and his family. Uncle James, the more sensitive of the twins, had absorbed most of the shadows, protecting Dad without him ever knowing. His fall into darkness hadn't started with evil intentions. It began with a child's desperate attempt to protect his brother. "Stop," Uncle James pleaded, his voice cracking as the light forced him to confront his own memories. "You don't understand what I've sacrificed." But the light wouldn't stop. It stripped away layers of darkness, revealing the wounded soul beneath. I saw him discovering Sarah's spiritual potential before she was born, genuinely believing he could use her power to control the shadows that had haunted his life. His manipulation of her genetics hadn't been purely malevolent. It was a twisted attempt to create someone strong enough to never suffer as he had. All those years he sobbed, his carefully constructed walls crumbling. I took the darkness so David wouldn't have to feel it. I became the monster so he could remain in the light. And how did he repay me? By forgetting I ever existed. Dad, still unable to see the spiritual battle, nevertheless responded to his twin's voice. "James," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I hear you, brother. I've always heard you." Sarah, her light now joining mine and Mom's, walked toward Uncle James without fear. The shadows recoiled from her approach, revealing more of his true self. "You're hurt," she said simply, reaching for his hand. Like Daddy's hurt, like Lucas was hurt. But hurting others doesn't make the always go away. Her innocent wisdom, combined with the purifying light, finally broke through Uncle James's defenses. He fell to his knees, the black cross slipping from his grasp. As it hit the floor, it shattered into shadows that quickly dissipated. "I never wanted to become this," he whispered. "I just wanted the pain to stop." And in that moment of vulnerability, Mom's presence grew stronger. Her light enveloped Uncle James, not in judgment, but in compassion. I understood then what true victory meant, not destroying the darkness, but healing the wounds that let it take root. "It's not too late," I said, understanding my role as guardian in a new way. "The shadows only have the power we give them. Let us help you, Uncle James. Let the light in." The climactic battle wasn't won with power or force, but with truth and compassion. As Uncle James accepted Sarah's small hand in his, decades of accumulated darkness began to fade. Not all at once, some shadows were too deeply ingrained to disappear quickly, but enough to let real healing begin. Michael appeared in the doorway, witnessing the transformation. "Now you understand," he said to me. "Being a guardian isn't just about fighting darkness, it's about bringing light to those lost in shadow. Sometimes the greatest victories come not through confrontation, but through healing." The monitors stopped their frantic beeping. The physical pain in my broken body seemed distant compared to the spiritual triumph we'd achieved. Uncle James, still visible only to Sarah and me, looked years younger, as if an enormous weight had lifted from his soul. Just when it seemed we had achieved victory, tragedy struck. Sarah collapsed, her light flickering dangerously. The strain of participating in the spiritual battle had taken its toll on her physical body. The monitors around her erupted in alarming beeps as nurses rushed into the room. "Her heart's failing," one nurse shouted. "Get a crash cart in here." Through my guardian sight, I watched in horror as shadows, no longer held back by Sarah's light, began creeping toward her. Uncle James, his own darkness barely contained, backed away in shock. "No, this isn't what I wanted. The genetic modifications were supposed to make her stronger." "What did you do to her?" I demanded, trying to get out of bed despite my injuries. Dad held me back, not understanding the true danger but feeling the tension in the room. Michael appeared beside me, his face grave. The changes James made to her genetic structure. They were meant to enhance her spiritual sight, but they're destroying her physical form. The human body isn't meant to channel that much light. The truth hit me like a physical blow. Mom's sacrifice hadn't just been about saving Sarah from Uncle James's immediate plan. She had been buying time, trying to find a way to stabilize Sarah's enhanced spiritual nature. Now that time was running out. "There has to be something we can do." I watched helplessly as doctors rushed Sarah to intensive care, her small form disappearing behind sliding doors. Dad followed, leaving me alone with the invisible battle for my sister's life. Michael placed a hand on my shoulder. "There is one way," he said softly, "but the price." "Tell me," I demanded, Mom's cross burning against my chest. "A second sacrifice could stabilize her, but it would have to be freely given, with full understanding of the cost. Your mother's sacrifice bought her time, but to permanently stabilize her condition would require my life." I finished. The truth settled over me like a heavy blanket. That's what Mom was trying to tell me when she gave me the cross. She knew this day would come. Uncle James stepped forward, his face haunted. "Let me do it. This is my fault. My obsession with power, my manipulation of her genetics. Let me make it right." But Michael shook his head. "It doesn't work that way. The sacrifice must come from pure love, not guilt. And it must be from someone with a direct blood connection who carries the light." I looked down at Mom's cross, understanding finally why it had chosen me, why Mom had made sure I would be prepared for this moment. The ultimate test of a guardian wasn't just fighting darkness, it was being willing to give everything for those you protect. "Will it hurt?" I asked quietly. Michael's eyes filled with tears, not physically, "But you'll be leaving behind everyone you love. Your father will lose another child, and Sarah, she'll live, but she'll have to grow up without her brother." The monitors in the ICU screamed in the distance. Through our spiritual connection, I could feel Sarah's light guttering like a candle in the wind. Time was running out. How do I do it? "You know how Michael said gently, the cross will show you the way. But Lucas, are you sure? You're so young." You have your whole life ahead of you." I thought of Sarah's smile, of her pure love that could pierce any darkness. I thought of Dad already broken by loss and how this would shatter him completely. I thought of Mom and finally understood the weight of the choice she had made. "What good is a long life," I said, "standing despite the pain if I spend it knowing I could have saved her?" I made my way to Sarah's ICU room, each step a battle against physical pain and the hospital staff trying to keep me in bed. The cross around my neck blazed brighter with each step, as if recognizing the weight of my decision. Dad sat by Sarah's bedside, holding her tiny hand, his lips moving in desperate prayer. Through my guardian's sight, I could see Mom's spirit hovering protectively over Sarah, but her light was fading along with the last traces of her sacrifice. Uncle James stood in the corner, his newly awakened conscience torturing him with the consequences of his actions. The shadows around Sarah grew bolder, sensing victory was near. "Dad," I said softly, pulling myself to Sarah's bedside, "I need you to listen to me. What I'm about to do, you won't understand it. You'll probably never forgive yourself for letting it happen. But I need you to know that this is my choice, just like it was Mom's choice." He looked up, confusion and fear warring on his face. "Lucas, what are you talking about? You need to be in bed, you're injured." "Mom didn't die from cancer," I continued, gathering my strength. "She sacrificed herself to save Sarah. Now it's my turn." I touched the cross at my neck, and for a moment Dad's eyes cleared through my power as a guardian. I let him see the truth, the spiritual battle that had been raging around our family for years. "No," he whispered, the full weight of understanding crushing him. "Not you too. I can't lose you both." "You won't lose us," I promised, tears streaming down my face. "We'll always be with you and Sarah. In the light." Uncle James stepped forward, becoming briefly visible to Dad. "Brother," he said, his voice breaking, "let him do what I should have had the courage to do. Let him save her." I leaned over Sarah's bed, the cross glowing brighter as I kissed her forehead. Through our connection, I could feel her spirit reaching for mine, understanding in her innocent way what was about to happen. "Take care of Dad," I whispered to her. "Keep shining your light, and remember that I love you more than my own life." I pressed Mom's cross to my heart and began the ancient words Michael had placed in my mind, the same words Mom had spoken 3 years ago. The room filled with blinding light as I offered myself in exchange for Sarah's life. The last thing I heard was Dad's anguished cry, Uncle James's whispered prayer of repentance, and Sarah's monitors returning to normal rhythm. The last thing I felt was Mom's presence embracing me as my spirit left my body. The last thing I saw was Sarah's light stabilizing, growing stronger than ever, now permanently protected by the double sacrifice of mother and son. In that final moment, I understood that tragedy isn't measured in the lives we lose, but in the love we choose to give away. But death, it seemed, had other plans. As my spirit prepared to join Mom in the light, something unprecedented happened. Sarah's voice cut through the veil between worlds, carrying a power none of us had anticipated. "No," she screamed, her light exploding outward with such force that it illuminated the entire spiritual realm. "You can't take him too." Through my fading consciousness, I witnessed something miraculous. Sarah's pure, untainted love had unlocked an ability no guardian had ever seen before. Her light didn't just push back the shadows, it rewrote the rules of our spiritual reality. Michael appeared, his expression one of awe. "In all my centuries as a guardian, I've never seen this. She's creating a third path." I watched, suspended between life and death, as Sarah's light enveloped both my physical body and my departing spirit. Through her eyes, her extraordinary spiritual sight, I could see what she was doing. She was weaving a new kind of protection, one that didn't require sacrifice but instead drew power from the unconditional love between siblings. The prophecy Uncle James whispered, his eyes wide with understanding. It wasn't about controlling the shadows at all. A child of pure light shall break the chains of sacrifice. Mom's spirit materialized beside me more clearly than ever before. "This is why I chose to save her," she said, her voice filled with joy and wonder. "Not because she needed protection, but because she would one day teach us all a better way." Sarah's light continued to pulse, stronger with each beat of her heart. Within it, I could see the truth unfolding. Every sacrifice, every battle between light and shadow had been leading to this moment. The ancient laws that demanded life for life weren't divine mandates but limitations of our own understanding. Love, Sarah said simply, her voice carrying the wisdom of ages, doesn't take. Love gives, love grows, love finds another way. Her words rippled through both realms, shattering centuries of guardians' beliefs about sacrifice and protection. The cross at my neck transformed, its light merging with Sarah's in a display of cosmic beauty that brought tears to every witness's eyes. I felt myself being pulled back into my body, but not through sacrifice or supernatural exchange. Instead, Sarah's light had created a bridge between the physical and spiritual realms, allowing me to exist in both without having to choose between them. This changes everything, Michael said, watching as the shadows around us began to transform, not through battle or banishment, but through the simple, profound power of Sarah's unconditional love. As I returned to my body, the full impact of Sarah's revelation continued to unfold. Through her extraordinary gift, we all began to see the bigger picture of truth that had been hidden in plain sight for generations. Mom appeared to everyone in the room, no longer just a spiritual presence, but visible to all, her form composed of pure light. "My children," she said, her voice filled with both joy and regret. "I thought my sacrifice was the only way. But Sarah has shown us what I should have understood from the beginning. Love multiplies, it doesn't divide." Dad fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face as he finally understood everything. The letter he'd kept locked away, the guilt he'd carried, the doubt that had plagued his faith, all of it was based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how divine love actually worked. The shadows, Uncle James said in wonder, watching as they transformed under Sarah's light, they were never our enemies. They were the manifestation of our own fear of loss, our belief that love requires sacrifice. Sarah, still glowing with unprecedented spiritual power, took both my hand and Dad's. "Family doesn't have to break to be strong," she said with her simple, profound wisdom. "Love is stronger when we're together." Through our connected hands, we all saw the truth about Mom's death, about Uncle James's fall into darkness, about my near sacrifice. Each event had been based on the ancient belief that protection required loss, that love demanded payment. But Sarah's pure heart had discovered what generations of guardians had missed: the power of unconditional love to transform rather than trade. "This is why I was chosen to be different," Sarah said, her extra chromosome now revealed as the key to her unique spiritual sight. Not to be fixed or protected, but to show everyone a new way. The revelation rippled outward, touching every guardian worldwide. I could feel them through our spiritual connection, their centuries-old beliefs being challenged and transformed. The age of sacrifice was ending, replaced by an era of transformation through love. Michael, still visible to us all in this moment of clarity, bowed his head. All these years we thought being guardians meant standing between the light and shadow. But Sarah has shown us that our real purpose is to bridge them, to transform darkness through understanding and love. Mom's form began to fade, but her smile remained bright. "My sacrifice wasn't wasted," she said softly, "because it led us here to this understanding. Through Sarah's gift, we've learned that the greatest power isn't in dying for those we love, but in living for them fully, together." As her words settled over us, I felt a deep shift in the spiritual realm. The ancient contracts, the rules about sacrifice and payment began to dissolve, replaced by a new covenant based on Sarah's profound truth that love's power lies not in what it's willing to give up, but in what it's willing to embrace. 3 months after that transformative day in the hospital, our family gathered in the renovated church sanctuary. The pews were filled with both physical and spiritual guardians, visible to each other for the first time thanks to Sarah's gift. Dad stood at the pulpit, his face glowing with renewed purpose as he addressed the congregation. "Today we don't just celebrate my son's recovery or my daughter's extraordinary gift," he began, his voice strong and clear. "We celebrate a new understanding of divine love, one that my children had to teach me." I sat in the front row, Mom's cross still warm against my chest, but different now. Instead of a tool for fighting shadows, it had become a channel for transformation. Sarah sat beside me, her natural light touching everyone around her, turning their shadows not into darkness, but into deeper understanding of themselves. Uncle James stood at the back, no longer hiding in shadows, but helping new guardians understand their gifts. His redemption had become a powerful testimony to Sarah's truth that no soul was beyond the reach of transformative love. My role as a guardian had changed too. Instead of standing between light and shadow, I now helped others bridge the gap between them. Every week, more people came to our church, drawn by the authentic power of Sarah's gift and the message of unconditional love it represented. The shadows still existed, but they no longer threatened or terrorized. Under Sarah's influence, we'd learned to see them for what they really were, parts of ourselves and others that needed understanding rather than battle. Each transformed shadow became a testament to the power of acceptance over sacrifice. Mom's presence remained with us, not as a sad reminder of sacrifice, but as a joyful participant in our new reality. Through Sarah's gift, she could manifest briefly during family moments, her love no longer bound by the ancient rules of spiritual exchange. As Dad finished his sermon, Sarah took my hand and led me to the pulpit. Together we shared our story not just of near death and sacrifice, but of the revolutionary power of unconditional love. The congregation watched in awe as Sarah demonstrated her gift, showing them how to transform their own shadows into light. The most powerful moment came at the end of the service. Sarah, standing before the congregation, shared her simple yet profound message: God's love doesn't take away, it makes more. Like when you share a smile and everyone gets happier. Her words, delivered with pure innocence, carried more spiritual weight than 1,000 theological treatises. The entire congregation, physical and spiritual, rose in understanding. Even Michael, watching from his place among the guardians, wiped away tears. My sister, I addressed the crowd, was never broken or in need of fixing. Her extra chromosome wasn't a mistake, it was a gift that allowed her to see what we had all missed. Through her, we learned that true love doesn't demand sacrifice, it offers transformation. Dad joined us at the pulpit, and for the first time in years, his smile reached his eyes. My wife's sacrifice wasn't in vain, he said, his voice strong with conviction. It was a step on the path to this greater truth. Through our pain and loss, we found a deeper understanding of divine love. Uncle James stepped forward, completing our family circle. The shadows I once thought needed controlling, he confessed, were really just calling out for understanding. Sarah showed us that darkness doesn't need to be destroyed, it needs to be embraced and transformed by love. As we stood together, Sarah's light enveloped us all, making visible the new reality she had created. The ancient war between light and shadow was over, replaced by a harmony that only unconditional love could achieve. Mom's spirit appeared one last time, completing our family circle, her sacrifice now transformed into a testimony of love's evolving power. Looking out at the congregation, at the former shadows now filled with light, at the guardians who had laid down their spiritual weapons, at the ordinary people discovering their own capacity for transformation, I finally understood. Our family's journey through loss, sacrifice, and redemption had opened a door that could never be closed. Sarah tugged at my hand, her face bright with joy. See, Lucas? Love wins. Love always wins. And in that moment, surrounded by transformed shadows and revelatory light, witnessing the power of unconditional love to heal what sacrifice could not, I knew she was right. Love had won. Not through battle or sacrifice, but through the pure, accepting heart of a child who saw no difference between light and shadow, only souls waiting to be loved into transformation.